In the lush kingdom of Kapilavastu, nestled at the foot of the majestic Himalayas, there lived a prince named Siddhartha Gautama. He was born into the Sakya clan, a warrior caste, and from the moment of his birth, the stars and sages foretold a remarkable destiny. His father, King Suddhodana, and his mother, Queen Maya, were overjoyed by the arrival of their son. But the prophecy was unsettling. The young prince would either become a great king who would conquer the world or a revered spiritual leader who would renounce the material world entirely. King Suddhodana, fearing the latter outcome, resolved to shield Siddhartha from the harsh realities of life. The prince was raised in an opulent palace, surrounded by every luxury imaginable. He was sheltered from suffering, pain, and death, and his every whim was catered to by servants who ensured he never wanted for anything. But even amid this lavish existence, Siddhartha felt a sense of incompleteness, a quiet discontent that stirred within his heart. One day, Siddhartha, now a young man, persuaded his charioteer, Channa, to take him beyond the palace walls. The king reluctantly agreed, believing that the outside world could be tightly controlled to show only the pleasant aspects of life. As Siddhartha rode through the streets, he encountered something that changed him forever. A frail old man, bent with age and walking with difficulty. "What is this?" Siddhartha asked Channa, his brow furrowed in confusion. "This, my lord, is old age. It comes to all who live long enough," Channa explained, his voice tinged with an unease he could not hide. Siddhartha was disturbed. He had never seen anything like it before. His mind was set ablaze with questions, but he said nothing as they continued their journey. They rode on, and soon he saw a sick man, lying in the gutter, writhing in pain. "What's wrong with him?" Siddhartha inquired, his voice trembling. "That is sickness, my lord," Channa replied softly. "It is another fate that can befall anyone." Again, Siddhartha's heart sank. He began to feel a weight upon him, something he could not quite understand. As they traveled further, Siddhartha encountered a funeral procession, with mourners weeping over a lifeless body. "Why are they crying? What is happening?" he asked, his eyes wide with fear and sadness. "That, my lord, is death. It is the end of life, and it comes to all living beings." Siddhartha was shaken to his core. These were truths he had never known, realities from which he had been shielded all his life. Finally, he encountered a wandering ascetic, a man who had renounced all worldly possessions in search of spiritual enlightenment. "Who is that man?" Siddhartha asked, intrigued by the ascetic's calm demeanor amid the turmoil of the world. "That is a seeker, my lord," Channa explained. "He has given up everything to find the truth." Siddhartha's heart was moved deeply. These encounters planted the seeds of a journey that would change the course of his life and, ultimately, the lives of millions. The palace walls no longer felt like a sanctuary. They were a prison that kept him from understanding the true nature of existence. Despite the comforts of his princely life, Siddhartha could no longer ignore the suffering he had witnessed. His thoughts consumed him, and he knew he had to leave the palace to seek answers. He spoke to his wife, Yasodhara, who had given birth to their son, Rahula, not long before. Siddhartha held his child for the first and last time, tears in his eyes, knowing that his departure would break his family's hearts in the dead of night. Siddhartha crept out of the palace, shedding his royal robes and cutting off his long, flowing hair. He left behind the life of a prince and began his journey as a wandering ascetic. He traveled far and wide, seeking guidance from the wisest sages and teachers of the time, but their teachings did not satisfy him. He subjected himself to extreme ascetic practices, depriving his body of food, water, and comfort, believing that mortification of the flesh would lead him to enlightenment. For 6 years, Siddhartha pursued these harsh practices, reducing himself to skin and bones, yet enlightenment eluded him. One day, near the town of Bodh Gaya, he realized that extreme deprivation was not the path to enlightenment. He recalled a moment from his childhood when he had experienced a serene state of concentration while watching his father plow the fields. This memory sparked a profound realization. Enlightenment could not be found in extremes, but in a balanced approach, the middle way. Siddhartha accepted a bowl of rice milk from a young girl named Sujata, and with renewed strength, he sat under a large Bodhi tree. He vowed not to rise until he had discovered the truth he sought. The night was dark and full of challenges. As Siddhartha sat in deep meditation, he was besieged by Mara, the lord of desire and illusion, who sought to disrupt his quest for enlightenment. Mara sent his daughters, Desire, Discontent, and Lust, to tempt Siddhartha, but he remained unmoved. Mara then unleashed his fiercest warriors, hurling storms, rocks, and flames at the meditating ascetic. But Siddhartha, in his profound stillness, transformed these attacks into harmless petals. Mara's final assault was one of doubt. He questioned Siddhartha's worthiness, trying to undermine his resolve. In response, Siddhartha touched the earth with his right hand, calling upon the earth to bear witness to his countless lifetimes of virtuous deeds. The earth trembled, and Mara's power was shattered as the morning star rose in the sky. Siddhartha's mind opened like a lotus blossom. He saw the universe in all its vastness and interconnectedness. He understood the nature of suffering, the causes of suffering, and the path to its cessation. He saw the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, and he comprehended the path to liberation from this cycle. In that moment, Siddhartha Gautama became the Buddha, the awakened one. The Buddha spent the next 7 weeks in silent contemplation, reflecting on the profound truths he had realized. He pondered whether anyone would understand the depth of his insights, for the path was subtle and difficult to grasp. But out of compassion, he decided to teach. His first discourse, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, or the turning of the wheel of Dharma, was delivered to the 5 ascetics with whom he had previously practiced. He taught them the 4 noble truths: the truth of suffering, dukkha; the truth of the cause of suffering, tanha or craving; the truth of the cessation of suffering, nirodha; and the truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering, the Noble Eightfold Path. The 5 ascetics became the Buddha's first disciples, and the Sangha, the community of monks and nuns, was born. From then on, the Buddha traveled across northern India, teaching all who would listen, kings and beggars, Brahmins and outcasts, men and women alike. His teachings were revolutionary, breaking down the rigid social barriers of caste and privilege. He preached a path of moderation, ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom, a path accessible to all, regardless of status or birth. While many of the Buddha's teachings and stories are well known, there are quieter, lesser-known moments that speak to his deep humanity. On one occasion, a woman named Kisagami came to him, clutching the lifeless body of her child. She was mad with grief and begged the Buddha to bring her son back to life. The Buddha, seeing her suffering, told her that he would do so if she could bring him a mustard seed from a household where no one had ever died. Kisagami went from house to house, but she could not find a single home untouched by death. She returned to the Buddha, understanding the universality of loss and suffering. The Buddha comforted her, not with miracles, but with the profound truth of impermanence. She became a follower and found solace in the Buddha's teachings. In another instance, the Buddha encountered Angulimala, a fearsome bandit who had murdered many people and wore a necklace of their fingers. Angulimala tried to chase the Buddha, but despite running with all his might, he could not catch up. The Buddha, walking calmly, eventually turned to the bandit and said, "I have stopped Angulimala. It is you who must stop." Confused and shaken, Angulimala listened to the Buddha's words on compassion and nonviolence. In that moment, Angulimala abandoned his life of violence and became a devoted monk, demonstrating the Buddha's belief in the power of transformation and redemption. As the years passed, the Buddha's message of compassion, wisdom, and liberation spread far and wide. His teachings, rooted in simplicity and profound understanding, transcended the boundaries of time, geography, and social status. He continued to walk the dusty roads of northern India, sharing the Dharma with anyone who sought solace, guidance, or the truth of existence. He was not a god, nor did he claim to be infallible. He was a guide, a teacher, and a friend to those lost in the cycles of suffering. As he approached the end of his life, the Buddha remained serene, reflecting the essence of his teachings. Everything is impermanent, and attachment is the root of all suffering. At the age of 80, he fell seriously ill but continued to comfort his disciples, encouraging them to be their own refuge and to diligently practice the path he had shown them. His final words to them were, "All conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive on with diligence." In his last moments, under the twin solid trees in Kushinagar, surrounded by his followers, the Buddha entered parinirvana, a state of final liberation beyond the cycles of birth and death. His passing was marked by a profound sense of loss among his disciples, but also by a renewed commitment to carry forward the light of his teachings. The Buddha's legacy is not enshrined in grand temples or lofty statues, but in the hearts and minds of those who embrace the path of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. His life is a testament to the transformative power of seeking truth and living in harmony with the world around us. The untold story of the Buddha is not one of miracles or divine interventions, but of a man who, through his own journey of self-discovery, became a beacon of hope for all those who seek peace and understanding. The Buddha's teachings continued to inspire countless generations across cultures and continents, evolving into a vast tapestry of spiritual traditions. From the simple monastic communities to the intricate philosophies and practices of diverse Buddhist schools, the essence of his message remains unchanged. The potential for enlightenment lies within each of us, and the path to it is one of compassion, ethical living, and mindful awareness. Even today, more than 2,600 years later, the story of the Buddha continues to resonate. It is a reminder that amid the turmoil of life, there is a way to rise above suffering and discover a deeper, enduring peace. The Buddha's legacy is one of unyielding compassion and a steadfast belief in the possibility of transformation. A legacy that lives on, not only in the teachings he left behind, but in the lives of those who walk the path he once tread. Thus, the journey of Siddhartha Gautama, from prince to ascetic to the enlightened one, remains a timeless saga of courage, compassion, and the quest for truth. It is a story that reminds us that the answers we seek are not found in the material world, but within the stillness of our own hearts. The Buddha's life, an untold story of profound humanity and insight, continues to inspire millions, offering a beacon of hope and a guiding light on the path to enlightenment.